All right, today we're talking how to easily rip $100 a day and why I believe this is the magic number to dramatically improve your results and your career progression. I'm gonna be covering how to get this done because a lot of people think this is a very ambitious target when in reality it's entirely attainable. There's probably just a few areas you need to better optimize in order to make it happen. So in this video, I'm gonna be covering what those areas are and let's get into it. So first, why is 100 such an important magic number? I believe this is the magic number because it's a nice, clean, round number that you can measure results against in percentage form, and it's a large enough sample size if you're doing it consistently on a daily basis where you'll easily be able to ride out variance and actually decipher insight from your results. And what I mean by variance is if you only make $27 in a day, you might only get one live call, maybe zero, maybe that live call is just a gatekeeper, and that's going to tell you nothing about your day, and it's essentially going to be a wasted day. When you make 100, oftentimes you can go 50, 60 dials without getting a live, and then it's that 60 to 70th dial where you get 4 or 5 lives in between them. So if you're consistently doing 100, you're going to get tons of lives. Hopefully you're booking some meetings. You're probably getting told no a lot. When you get told no, is it a straight up hang up or are they giving you an objection? If they are giving you an objection, which objections are you getting? Which ones are you better or worse at handling? This is all stuff that you want to be measuring so that you know where you need to focus on in order to improve. If you're a follower of the channel, you know I like to keep the cold calling process very scientific. I like to measure my results, get that yes or no answer. How many times am I getting yeses? How many times am I getting no's? When I get no's, is it a resounding no or is it an objection? Which objections am I better or worse at handling? And keeping track of all that stuff. When you're making $100 daily, you're giving yourself a very large sample size and a very clean data set to measure results off of. The next thing about making 100 dials is you're kind of going to put yourself in legend status with your management if you're actually consistently making 100 dials, because 99% of SDRs and sales reps do not make 100 dials a day. So if you're known as that person who knows how to structure their day and consistently rips 100 dials a day, it's going to look very good in the eyes of your management and probably do wonders for your career progression. The final thing about making 100 dials is that if we do some simple mental math, you'll realize it's a very attainable target. So let's say it takes on average 1 minute per cold call. So this includes all the cold calls that only last 10 seconds because it goes straight to voicemail, and this includes the cold calls that go as far as 5 or 10 minutes because you're on the phone with them forever. If the average is 1 minute, that's 100 minutes, which is a little under 2 hours. If the average is 2 minutes, then that's 200 minutes, which is a little bit over 3 hours. Ideally, your average call should be within that range. This is why I preach value statements and getting that yes or no answer out of the gate, because it prevents these calls that drag on for 5, 10 minutes. Most of my cold calls are wrapped up in 2 minutes or less. I either get the no and it's not a fit, or I get the yes, but I'm focused on selling time and we simply book the meeting for a later date. I don't like these calls that drag on 5, 10 minutes because even if it's going well, I want to be doing that discovery at a later time when I'm better prepared. And even worse, if it's not going well and they end up hanging up on you, now that call was a lot more damaging because it lasted 10 minutes as opposed to 1 or 2 minutes. Hopefully I've convinced you 100 is an ideal target, but now I want to go into how to actually make this happen. The key to making this happen is to reduce friction in your day wherever possible and save as much mental energy as you can. That means you need to wake up knowing what to do the second you sit down rather than sitting down and having to come up with what to do that day. Key technique to do this is to build all of your prospecting lists for the quarter up front. What I typically end up doing the first 1 to 2 days of the quarter is actually doing almost no prospecting, and I spend my entire day building lists. I make lists for all the accounts in my territories by department, by title, by persona, so that I don't have to spend any time the rest of the quarter doing this. So every day when I sit down, I have unlimited lists to choose from, and I will pull one up that I have not contacted yet and immediately get my day started without having to think about it. The other thing I do is I preset my cold call and cold email templates for each persona. So if I have 50 lists of different finance personas I'm targeting at all the accounts in my territory, I will have a preset email template that's targeted for finance people. So I don't have to spend the start of my day coming up with what email to send. I have something that's 80, 90% ready to go, and I can just tweak it and make it slightly more targeted for the specific company I'm going after. And I will also do that for every other persona, whether it's accounting, whether it's marketing, whether it's HR, whether it's supply chain. The different personas you have, you can keep an email template or a cold call script with 80 to 90% the same structure and just tweak a few words so that when you sit down, you don't have to come up with a new template from scratch. This saves an incredible amount of mental capital every day. If you do it right the first 1 to 2 to 3 days of the quarter, then the remaining 90 days of the quarter or whatever you have, you never have to think about that stuff again and can easily get your day started. So that's the first technique for optimizing your day. The second one is going to be having pre-scheduled times for prospecting. The key thing here is to actually pre-schedule times that you will stick to. I don't have a strong preference for when the best time to cold call is or when the best time to email is. I think the best time is something you will actually hold yourself accountable to. For example, a lot of people say that cold calling first thing in the morning is the best time of the day to cold call. But I'm a normal person. When I sit down at my desk at 8 a.m. and I haven't had my coffee yet, I'm usually not ready to pick up the phone and start ripping dials. Typically, the way I structure my day is 8 to 9:30 is my email block, and then I have 2 call blocks that go from 10:30 to 12, and then one at the end of the day from 3:30 to 5. The reason I have this strategy is because in the late morning, I usually call any accounts or personas I have on the West Coast because it will be early in the morning for them, so I do get that early morning cold call effect. And I actually do think the end of the day is a good time to call my East Coast accounts because usually they're not busy, they're not in meetings, they're wrapping up their day. So that's how I think about it, but the key is just having a consistent structure. The last technique, which kind of combines the two, is now that I have pre-scheduled times and I still have those preset templates for each persona, I operate on an A-B schedule. So when I sit down on Monday morning, I pick a list to email at 8 a.m. I call it list A, and I take the preset template that associates with it, and that's what I do from 8 to 9:30 is I send out those emails. On Tuesday morning, I'll pick a different list, call it list B, and I'll pick the preset template for that list and fire that out 8 to 9:30. Wednesday morning, the first thing I do, I will go into my sent box and send follow-up emails to list A. On Thursday, the first thing I will do is go into my sent box and send follow-up emails to list B. And then on Friday, the first thing I do is send another follow-up to both list A and B. And that's how my 8 to 9:30 goes every morning. And then in those 2 cold block times, I cold call whatever list I didn't email that day. So for example, on Tuesday, I will cold call list A that I emailed on Monday. On Wednesday, I will cold call list B that I emailed on Tuesday. On Thursday, I will cold call list A again. On Friday, I will cold call list B again. That way, in a 1-week span, I have contacted both list A and list B with 3 emails per contact and at least 2 cold calls. And notice how those are just in those preset times. There's a lot of time in the day I have not accounted for, and I can use that time to handle more targeted prospecting, work with my internal account team, take meetings that I've set, etc. So if you implement all these techniques consistently, I promise you hitting 100 dials a day will be a breeze. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you do any of these things or if there's other ways you structure your day that you would recommend. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, hit the like button and I'll see you on the next one.